Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special live edition of the Media Vote podcast. My name is Matt. Mike's out on assignment. It is the holiday weekend after all, and he has a family to entertain. I'm sure they're eating hot dogs, firing off fireworks safely. Of course, we're supportive, safe fireworks use here on the Media Vote podcast. But, anyways, yeah, it's the Media Boat Podcast. Today is July the 3rd, 2026. Today is episode 545, contrary to what the last couple of YouTube episodes said. I think Mike got a little confused with the numbering there for a couple of weeks. Nonetheless, we're back. This is a podcast all about entertainment, news, and thoughts, including movies, television, video games, and music, not necessarily in that order. Let's get right into it. We always start with the music section here, and today we'll start the music section with I'm like freezing, with the Billboard Hot 100, your hottest singles in the land. We start with your number one song, Choose in Texas by Ella Langley, coming in at number 2, dropping down from number 1 last week. I Knew It, I Knew You, Taylor Swift's song from Toy Story 5. Also, I won't be mentioning it later, so I will say it now. Congratulations to Taylor Swift, who I believe is getting married to Travis Kelce right now in Madison Square Garden in New York City. I realize that there's been some controversy about this. People are questioning the choice of venue, especially for what was originally said to be a intimate gathering now seems to be a big spectacle that is also locked down security wise. I don't know. This is Taylor for you, right? It's constant mixed messages of like, oh, I'm just an average girl, but also I'm the richest person on the planet, one of them. And like, I want to show that off every once in a while. There's this like push and pull, it seems, between those two thrusts, those desires in her life. And yeah, she can't figure out a golden medium between those two. And here you go. So yeah, congratulations with a caveat is what I'll say. But I guess they did donate a bunch to charities before this happened. So I don't know, maybe trying to head off that conversation of the past. It's not going to work, Taylor. They'll get you no matter what because people are cruel and that's just how it's going to be. Anyways, so yeah, I Knew It, I Knew You, number 2 this week. Coming in at number 3, Be Her, the other Ella Langley single. Number 4, Stupid Song by Olivia Rodrigo. And number 5, Drop Dead by Olivia Rodrigo. Moving on to your Billboard 200, your albums chart. Number 1, You Seem Pretty Sad for a Girl So in Love by Olivia Rodrigo is still number 1. Followed by, well, what do you know? It's the same list as last week. Number 2 is Iceman by Drake. Number 3 is Dandelion by Ella Langley. Number 4, I'm the Problem by Morgan Wallen. And number 5, The Great Divide by Noah Kahan. And that's your Billboard charts for this week. Checking the levels here. Am I loud enough? I sure hope so. If this doesn't record any audio, then yeah, I'm sorry. All right. Let's move on to some new releases. Just a couple this week. Pretty slow release for the holiday weekend. We have Splat, all caps, exclamation point, by Deep Purple. Yes, that Deep Purple. And also Confessions on a Dance Floor Part 2 by Madonna, following up a earlier Madonna record. Sure, why not? All right, next we have our music news story. And today we go into the world of something we don't really talk about on this podcast very much. The other streaming service that's not Spotify and not Apple Music and not even Amazon or YouTube. Yes, I'm talking about Tidal, the streaming service that was originally pitched as the high fidelity one. Of course, now they're all high fidelity, and also had investments at one time by like Jay-Z and other musicians. Well, they made quite a splash this week when they confirmed, yes, no pun intended there, that artists uploading music wholly or substantially created using AI will be labeled as such, and those songs on Tidal will not be eligible for royalties. The service's new AI policy goes into effect on July 15th, and it also applies to Tidal's independent artist franchise, Tidal Upload. Tidal will also ban AI generated music associated with fraudulent activity, quote unquote, a category that includes songs impersonating established artists and any efforts to deceive listeners, quote. This is pretty cool. I wish Spotify was out here saying this. I wish Apple was out here saying this. It's like good, solid AI policy. It reminds me a little bit of what Steam does in the video game sector. It's like, hey, if you use the AI, we're going to flag it. We're going to show everybody. I mean, yes, there's been some discourse on the video game side saying like it's a little unfair and it makes games targets. But hey, there's so much music out there. There's so much you could be listening to that's not AI generated. And so it's cool that at least they're putting guideposts up there for people who might not know any better, or might not know what to look for, or in this case, listen to see what the difference is there. So I'm all for it. And I like a company like Tidal standing up for this kind of thing. It's exciting. And I hope the other services take note. Of course, Apple probably won't. They're trying to sell an AI product. So yeah, be that as it may. All right, no music thoughts this week, so we're gonna roll right into the dreaded section of this week, which is, of course, video games. If you got the vibe that there was a shift in tone around the video game industry lately, especially after last week's show, well, boy, howdy, do we have another one for you today. Because it's not getting better, folks. If anything, it is getting worse. But first, there's some new releases to talk about, and thankfully, those are a little rosier than our news stories this week. We start with Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced, the re-release of course, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. That's on PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X. Next up, Backyard Baseball is back. Yes, those of you old enough to remember the Humongous Entertainment series way back on the PC a long time ago. It's back. What's that kid Carlos that everybody loves? Like, that's apparently the best at playing baseball. He's back too, from what I understand. Yeah, this is a 2026 reboot. It like involves some of the original features, but with some new bells and whistles. I don't really know. I was not a backyard baseball guy when I was younger, so I kind of missed this entire boat. But for those of you who are into it, hopefully this makes you happy. All right. Next up in the new release calendar here is EA Sports College Football 27. Yes, it is time. The college football franchise has cooled a little bit after its initial big return release a couple of years ago. But I bet this still sells pretty well, and I bet some people are still really excited to see what they've added this year. I actually don't know, since Mike is not here, if there's anything extremely exciting about this year's college game. But hey, it's out. And then lastly, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink Endless Ragnarok. And that's on PC, PS5, PS4, and the Nintendo Switch 2, the second one. All right. Let's move in to this news section. All right. Strap in, folks. We start with a banger here, and a banger in the most negative way I can possibly state it. So this news kind of hit after we talked about this stuff from Xbox last week. We talked about the price going up on the console. We talked a little bit about the possibility of layoffs. Well, it's more or less been confirmed since then that multiple studios that are under the umbrella of Microsoft or Xbox Game Studios are either going to be closed, spun off, or completely sold by Microsoft. This is technically still a rumor, but it's fairly confirmed by just like what's been talked about from Xbox and people around Xbox over the last week. And we more or less know which studios are the targets here. Compulsion Games is first, of course, South of Midnight developer Compulsion Games. Double Fine, the story developer of Psychonauts 2, recent game Kiln. Ninja Theory, who announced their new Senua game at the last showcase. Undead Labs, the people who brought us State of Decay 3, also a game that was just shown off at the showcase. And the most recent one that hit, Arcane Studios, the developer that, of course, was working on the Marvel's Blade game and was pretty much ready to show that thing off pretty soon here. And so, yeah, that's another big surprise. So, yeah, across the board, it looks like people are either just going to completely lose their jobs, just get shut down altogether. The studios are maybe having internal talks, depending on the state of their different projects, about whether they can spin off to be an independent entity or if they want to be bought by some other company, if Microsoft will sell them to interested parties. It seems like this stuff must still be up in the air because nothing has been confirmed up to this point. We thought it was going to be a quick turnaround after the new fiscal year. Hasn't been the case. We're 2 days later and no movement has really happened. I imagine we find out maybe next week about the fate, or maybe some of the fates of these studios are drawn out now that this news has gone public and Microsoft has to deal with the backlash. Then this was kind of a crazy idea because, like, the question of course then strikes is like, well, if Microsoft invested in all these companies to make video games, and then they did or are working on video games, and they decide that they're going to sell the companies or shut them down, where are the video games? Where are all these Xbox games, including the ones they just showed at the showcase? What was the showcase for, right? A lot of the conversation has been about this question about, like, wait, what was the plan here? They wanted to make such a big deal on Xbox about, like, oh, Xbox is getting a restart, like a rebrand, like we're going to really make the future of Xbox rosy, but you can't do that if you have no studios to make games. What's left, right? You have the Bethesda stuff, obviously, is still there. The id stuff is still there. Activision stuff is still there. That's like not a whole lot of games, especially when you consider that the Bethesda games take a long time to cook. The Activision stuff right now is a couple of reboots, like that new Spyro thing. It's Call of Duty, of course. I don't know beyond that, right? Like there's only so much, like I guess the next the Doom expansion that they confirmed. The next Wolfenstein, I think, is still coming, right? Like, but that's only a handful of games. And I don't know where they're expecting to get the variety. I don't understand what they're expecting to, like, show off in a showcase in the future if they only have like 3 or 4 games. It's pretty wild. Uh yeah, I don't know why I would get rid of people instead of putting them on projects that they could, spend time working on to make Xbox a platform that people would care about again. It's very odd that we got this about face almost in just 2 weeks time between Asha Sharma being out there being like, this is the future of Xbox, looks rosy and everything looks great. And now all of a sudden it's doom and gloom and layoffs and studio closures. This is why I was very quick to say after the showcase, sure, this looks good for right now, but a CEO turnover means layoffs. I just didn't know it was going to be this drastic. I didn't know it'd be this violent. Like, this is company changing how many people are going to be losing their jobs potentially here. I don't know what Xbox is anymore. I still don't know. Anyway, to make matters more complicated at the Xbox camp, according to a partner at Caboodle Games, a developer working on a game that was supposedly going to be possibly a Game Pass entry, Fernando Rizzo, he cites conversations with fellow developers saying that apparently Xbox is slowing down the frequency of Game Pass deals completely. This is weird considering that Game Pass used to be their like flagship way of getting smaller releases on Xbox in the first place. It was something they touted as a way to sell Xbox through the just sheer variety and quantity of Game Pass titles. So it's just very strange to have like, okay, not only are they closing the studios, but also they're not even reaching out to third parties to make Game Pass deals anymore at the same like drip that they were. Well, then what's the value of Game Pass? If there's not the value of Game Pass, and if they're not making games internally as much, where are the games coming from? Besides the big ones that I mentioned, your Fallouts, your Elder Scrolls, your Gears of Wars, your Halos. What's the value proposition for an Xbox anymore, especially one that costs $800? I just I have no idea anymore. Like this is the thing is if you're trying to sell the gaming public or the average person even on the concept of an Xbox, you're really running out of like ways to sell it. It's too expensive. There's just fewer games than ever. First party games, that is. And there are going to be fewer third party games on Game Pass. And game prices have gone up to the point where now they want you to shell out $60, $70, $80, especially when you're talking about like GTA 6 per game. What's the proposition at this point? I don't know if there is one. So yeah, it's dire over at Xbox. It looks probably the worst that it's been in a long time, and that's saying a lot considering of how wild and dire things looked last year when we were talking about this stuff. For people like me who've been watching this for a while, like we're there, like since the original Xbox was released and have been following Microsoft's evolution with their brand and like how they've treated it. There's only one answer at this point, and it is something that has been suggested, which is maybe they're just trying to get rid of it. Maybe Microsoft is done with video games and they're just like, Asha Sharma, try to do what you like, try to make the brand look maybe like something somebody wants to buy because we're not interested in investing in this anymore. Like, I think Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, said something this week that he's like trying to make the company basically more based on what was it was a really tech bro way of saying basically AI is going to be like half the business. Like AI, it's going to be a combination of like AI and human capital or something like that. So it's very clear that entertainment is not something that the brand is interested in anymore. I don't think they care. And so, yeah, I would not be surprised if this ends up being, oh, all of a sudden Xbox is on the market. Xbox is something that somebody can buy and handle. And Asha Sharma and Matt Booty are there as part of that deal. And like, well, you can take them on, or maybe they bail when it's bought or something like that. I don't know. It just seems like they shipped them off to try to spin this thing off. And because it's just not getting, it's never going to be profitable enough for them. It's never going to be valuable enough for them. They no longer care about Master Chief anymore. They're like, all right, bye, Chief. Bye, Xbox. You're not worth it to care about anymore. We don't like video games. Like that's just the vibe. If they cared about it, if they liked it, they would have put somebody in that wouldn't do this. They would have figured something out. They would have like solved the puzzle or at least tried to solve the puzzle. These guys don't care about the puzzle. They want to respond to dummies on X about really dumb stuff. And they want to close a bunch of studios that made games that really did well. Because why else would you do it, right? Why else? Oh, you're saving money. Oh, it's not making enough money. Are really the 5 games that are going to come out like this year going to make you that money? No, they're not. None of this is ever going to make money. I don't know. Anyways, it's stupid. It's all stupid. All of it. And we haven't even gone to the stupidest thing. And that's not Xbox's fault. We'll get to that in a second. Before we move on to that, though, we have something else to talk about with Sony, the subject of our next half of the game bits. Because they couldn't like have like make like let Xbox have all the spotlight this week. No, Sony had to make their pair of statements this week. We start with a less severe one, and one we more or less saw coming, just with the trajectory of how these things go at Sony. They've announced that the PlayStation Store on PS3 and Vita will be officially closing. This was something actually that they tried to do a few years ago and was shut down after public outcry. Well, apparently, public outcry doesn't move the needle enough anymore, and they're actually going to do it this time. So yeah, it's the continuing story of Sony just not believing that digital things are permanent, that they can be revoked at any time, that stores can be shut down if they just like are they're running on a server that they don't want to support anymore. And this is what's happening here. So yeah, I imagine that if you want to get in and download your PS3 and Vita games the last second, you can do that now because there's going to be a limited time. I actually don't have a date on the story for when this is going to happen, but just assume it's going to be sooner than later. So yeah, go get I don't know, Super Stardust HD while it's still available. Get your copy. What was the Vita Uncharted game? I don't even remember what that game was called, but that's probably a limited release at this point. So go get it. Yeah, it sucks. I don't like when digital storefronts are shut down. It means that you can't, it's harder to re-download things that you've purchased with real money. And that's always bad. Like it's bad from a historical perspective. It's bad from a consumer perspective. It's bad on both levels. It's bad uh, for everybody who likes having access to their old games that didn't buy them physically. And speaking of which, that's the kicker for this week, because if you want to know where we're at with the video game industry, here's the story that really encapsulates it. I kind of hinted that this might happen last week when we talked about GTA 6 coming out without a physical disc release. I said that according to an analyst, I forget who it was, that there wouldn't, that he basically said that he wouldn't be surprised if GTA 6, if Rockstar shipped GTA 6 without a disc, it meant that the disc-based video game might be on its dying, like might be in its dying form. And sure enough, I picked up the phone and I immediately want to hang it up because I don't like the answer that it gave me. Sony has announced that yes, physical disc games will be discontinued for PlayStation consoles starting 2028. So, what this means is PlayStation games will be available on disc for the duration of 2026 and the rest of 2027. But starting in 2028, they will no longer manufacture discs for PlayStation. This means that they will largely be moving to, well, I guess completely be moving to a digital storefront only. So if you want a PlayStation game, whether it be a 5 or if a 6 exists at that point, game, you will have to buy it digitally. You will not be able to go into a store and get a disc. It's a little unclear about whether this means that retailers won't be able to have what GTA 6 is doing, like a box with a code in it, or maybe even one of those like download cards that they used to sell once upon a time. I know PlayStation at one point actually didn't like those cards and wanted stores to stop selling them, trying to corral people into the PlayStation store itself. So maybe that's their plan going forward, mean nothing in a retail store. But as you imagine, the death of a digital sales option for PlayStation is a game changer, no pun intended, because like it changes the used market. GameStop can't stock up on older PlayStation 5 games after a certain point because they just will not exist. It also prohibits you from sharing games that you've bought physically. For example, if you bought a disc for PlayStation 5, you can no longer just be like to hand it to your friend. A lot of people were pointing out, hey, wait a minute. Isn't PlayStation the guy? Like, aren't PlayStation the ones that made it such a big deal back on the Xbox One era? In the PS4 era, that they weren't going to do what Xbox was going to do originally with the Xbox One. They made that funny video about like, how do you share a game on PlayStation? You just hand it to a friend. How times have changed. It's not like that anymore. It's over. It's gone. There is no sharing. So it's been little more than a decade, and already we've completely reversed where we were at back then with that kind of thought process. It seems like Sony or like PlayStation, just like Xbox, has decided that the end consumer and what the end consumer wants is not that important anymore. Instead, they probably just looked at the numbers. They crunched the numbers and were like, okay, a certain amount of percentage of people are buying digitally over the people buying physical at this point. And that number is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That chart, the line is going up one direction and is going down the other direction. And that does make a certain amount of sense. Your more hardcore video game players are going to be always online. They're going to be downloading games more often from the store instead of going out and getting them digitally or getting them physically. Your physical consumers are going to be people who are either lapsed or part-time gamers who go into a Best Buy to pick up Madden, or Call of Duty or whatever. They're not necessarily buying it online a lot. Maybe they're skeptical about putting their credit card on their store on the storefront or whatever. And then, of course, a big problem here is people in rural areas who rely on video games to be on a digital format so they can play them at all if they don't have reliable broadband, reliable internet connections. I understand that is becoming more rare, that like internet availability is better than it ever has been, but you are shutting out a lot of people with that option. And additionally, as we talked about probably in the past, digital things are easier to like blow up the pricing model on. So we're already looking at a world where video games are expensive. What if they were more expensive? What if you couldn't stop it? What if there was no secondary market where you could get a used game? This is what we're looking at right now. It is a complete shift with the economics of the video game industry and how video games are purchased. You're blocking out people who can't afford things. You're blocking out people in areas, like I said, who can't connect to the internet constantly. And as almost like a response to this, Xbox added this week that they were like, "Oh yeah, we're already thinking about how in the future you can there'll be a feature on Xbox to transfer your physical games into a digital license so that you have them digitally going forward." Cool. Again, that sends us back to the Xbox One era, right? Because they really want that so that way they can disencourage piracy. They want to like disencourage multiple users on the same game. Like this is where we've always been headed. Microsoft just tried to cheat back in 2013 and jumpstart it. And then they got corralled again because there's a version of these companies that cared more about public opinion, about outcry, about reactions from actual media sources. Well, media around video games dried up is one of the things that's happened. And also gamers on the internet, quote unquote, have gotten really reactionary and gross in certain corners and care about the wrong things. And so now you're getting like such a mishmash of opinions that they just don't care about people who can't afford video games. They don't care about people in rural areas anymore. That's not their consumer that they want the money from. And really, all it's become is a business that cares about the money. I know Mike likes to say his, it's a business thing here. And you know what? There's a point where that stops being an excuse. Video games are not just a commodity. Video games are not just a thing that you sell to earn money. I know the CEOs seem to think so. They're a piece of art. They're always been art. They're not even just art. I don't even mean that in a pretentious way. I mean they're also entertainment. They're also a thing that is supposed to be sold to a person so they can enjoy it. And the industry with this news this week, it feels like that soul has been just forcefully ripped out and replaced with just a pure numbers game. Xbox and PlayStation don't think about the games as entertainment anymore. They just think of it as, well, this one sold more than that one. We're going to shut down the studio that made the other one so that way we can focus our resources on the one that we guarantee will print us money so we can make another game that will print us even more money. Guys, it's not a microwave. It's a video game. It's an experience that's supposed to be entertaining. And I feel so badly for the people who are probably working on these games that do put their heart and soul in it, do put like a sense of personality in them, that work hard at what they do, only to be told at the end of the day, you didn't make enough money. So all of that is gone. So we're going to take away your livelihood because this number didn't match the number that our numbers guy came up with, who's never played a video game in his life. It's so depressing. it's just brutal. It's just brutal in so many ways, for so many reasons, and to so many people. And I don't know if it's going to get better anytime soon because these prices are going to continue going up. Like Xbox even said after the price increase last week that they expect the component prices to double again. Double. That's insane. Are we going to be looking at a $1,200 Xbox in 6 months? We might be. Who? No one. No one wants that. No one can buy that. It's not a sustainable thing. None of this is sustainable. None of this makes any sense anymore. Yeah. I don't know. I don't even know what to say anymore. I think I said it. But yeah, that's video games. I hope we have better news about video games coming up. I don't know where it's going to come from. I do encourage you though to just watch more stuff, like more of these video game websites, these like independent, especially the independent companies like your Giant Bombs, your Nextlanders, your Aftermaths, like a lot of companies out there are doing great things with video games and still very clearly care about them. And good games are coming out a lot, several times a year. Old games are still good. Play your old games. I don't know. Find the joy where you can, because modern console manufacturers that are not Nintendo, and even Nintendo in some cases has made some dumb decisions over the last couple of years. But at least PlayStation and Xbox don't seem like they care about you anymore. So just keep that in mind going forward. All right, let's move on. Our next section is television. And we start television, of course, with the Sports Corner. Again, I'm not Mike. I'm going to do the best I can here. I don't know a lot of the context, but I will, again, do my best. We start, of course, with the World Cup as it continues. The round of 16 has begun, with host countries Mexico, Canada, and the USA continuing on in this tournament. So congratulations to those. A lot of upsets from what I've heard. A lot of countries that we all assumed, just because World Cup would go further, have been eliminated in the knockout rounds. And we do have the home teams somehow succeeding in ways that they haven't done in years, including, yes, the U.S. men's team. Meanwhile, parallel to the World Cup is, of course, Wimbledon, which continues. So tennis is off the hook, is playing constantly. I know over here we've been watching a lot of tennis. Championship is on Sunday, July 12th. So check in to see how the Wimbledon this year wraps up. Next up, in the sport of eating hot dogs really fast, Joey Chestnut and Miki Sudo seek to defend their titles at the corner of Surf and Stillwell Avenues on Coney Island. Yes, for another edition of the classic Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest that will take place on July 4th, tomorrow, as of this recording. In case you're paying attention to the NFL, in the off-season, training camp does begin on the 15th, so mark your calendars for that. And as I already mentioned, Madison Square Garden is busy tonight, not for sports, but for, of course, the wedding between Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Next up, baseball news this week. Phase 2 voting is underway currently for the MLB All-Star Game. Also, we've had some names start to trickle in for the Home Run Derby. Just as a reminder, I got reminded this yesterday, so just as a reminder to our audience, the Home Run Derby is on Netflix this year. So in case you were wondering where it was, that's where it will be. Next up, the NBA had a big bombshell this week. LeBron James, yes, that LeBron James, has decided his days with the Lakers are over. He basically said, hey, let the team know that I will not be on their roster going forward. This allows him to be picked up by another team, so he's essentially a free agent. Where he will go, well, I guess it's a bidding war at this point, I would imagine. So we'll find out pretty soon here. He's got to be almost done, right? I know I say that every season, but surely, right? Meanwhile, in basketball, there's a little bit of a rule change. The one free throw rule will award one free throw for any foul that would typically result in 1, 2, or 3 free throws under standard NBA rules. That free throw attempt will be worth the same amount of total points as the free throw it replaces. This will take place until the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter and throughout overtime, when standard NBA free throw rules will apply. So there you go. Free throw meta updated. Moving on to some hockey offseason news. Alex Ovechkin, the NHL's career leader in goals, 929, has decided he's not done playing quite yet and has decided to return for the 26-27 season, his 22nd with the Washington Capitals. So, wow, that's a lot of time playing hockey for the same team. So there you go. Ovechkin not done quite yet. And then lastly, speaking of college football, it's not just in video game form, it's also very, very real. Yeah, you can see it happen. They have announced a new ruling that will see all players granted 5 years of eligibility to be completed within 5 years of high school graduation or an athlete's 19th birthday, whichever comes first. This means that gone are medical redshirt years and traditional redshirt rules that allowed players to stick around for more than 4 years. There will be limited exceptions for factors like religious missions, maternity leave, and military service because, carve outs are important for certain things that there are exceptions to be made for. But otherwise, yeah, this is going to kind of change the roster of who you're looking at on your college teams. So I guess keep your eyes peeled for that one. And that's it for sports. Not much to talk about with sports this week. Pretty light on the big things, except for the LeBron news. But we're waiting for the other shoe to drop on that one. So stay tuned. All right, let's move into some television news. And this was one that was on my radar this week. I was definitely surprised. Comcast was in the news this week, saying Monday that it plans to spin off NBC Universal into a separate publicly traded company. The independent NBC Universal will include the Universal Pictures Film Studio, the NBC and Telemundo broadcast networks, NBC News, the streaming service Peacock, the cable channel Bravo, their lucrative theme parks division, and Sky, the British TV broadcaster that Comcast acquired back in 2018. Comcast will focus on instead providing broadband, cable, and wireless services to businesses and residential customers, getting out of entertainment altogether. It follows Comcast's decision back in November 2024 to streamline operations by spinning off the suite of cable channels that they owned, including CNBC and MSNBC, which is now known as MS Now, into a separate publicly traded company called Versant. Here's the quote from Rich Greenfield, who is a partner and analyst at Lightshed Partners. Quote, "It's time to split. They have better futures on their own." He says he believes that Comcast and NBC Universal's core businesses are no longer compatible. Those days are over, he says. The separation between Comcast and NBC Universal is expected to be completed in about a year. I saw this story accompanying a headline that said, "Is vertical integration dead?" And while I won't go that far, it does seem like it's definitely less popular than it has been in 20 years. I would say that much. It used to be every year we were having a company, like a cable company, buy a media company. Like that seemed to like that was happening more and more. Even back in the AOL Time Warner days, it seemed like very much like stacking vertically was the way that these companies wanted to operate. But I think as more corporations get more money-minded exclusively, again, they're just not seeing value in entertainment as product. I just do not think that the days of where creatives became CEOs are way behind us. And now it's the day of tech bro CEOs who just want the numbers to go up and don't actually care about the entertainment product at the end of that transaction. And so, yeah, they're just being like, no, we're getting rid of this NBC stuff, this Peacock stuff, this Universal stuff. Movies, television, streaming, you can't make money doing that anymore. And maybe you can't. But if that's the only value that you're looking for in a product, yeah, of course you'd be disappointed in it. And of course you'd want to spin it off. There's also been some weird like tag along stories to this, like saying some sources saying that NBC Universal, when it becomes an individual entity, might want to get into video games too. And Man, that's going to be weird to see. I'm just interested in seeing what that company even looks like, what their vibe is, whether they continue kind of the trajectory that's already existed. Because we here at the Meaty Bow podcast are strong proponents of Peacock. I feel like it's a very slept on streaming service. It's pretty cool, and I really like what they've done with it. And there's a lot of great stuff on it. I actually think that NBC Universal's vibe is so much better right now than Paramount's, Disney's. Like their competitors, they make their competitors look like their competitors don't care as much as they do. And I'm hoping that is just their own vibe. And when they are spun off, they remain feeling a little bit like the more chill one, because that's the vibe I get lately. I mean, yes, did they also unfortunately give us all these crappy Illumination movies? Yes, but hey, you can't win them all. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see if this ends up being a good thing? Question mark. I guess this is the opposite of consolidation. So hey, I'll take it. All right. Let's move on. No television thoughts. I did not finish The Bear, nor have I jumped into season 2 of X-Men 97. Although I might do that tonight because I wasn't even aware it came out. But instead, let's move on to cancellations and renewals. First up, Building the Band, canceled after one season on Netflix. Every Year After will get a second season on Prime Video. And Nemesis will get a second season on Netflix. And we have one death this week, Victor Willis, age 74, a member of the Village People, and also helped write Village People hits such as YMCA and In the Navy. So yeah, just by those two songs alone, that's a legend status right there. I mean, you can't go anywhere without hearing our president's favorite song, YMCA. All right, let's move into the last section of the show. Wrap this up with the weekend box office numbers. And yes, I know I have to take another loss this week. I was wrong, but again, my heart was in the right place. I wanted Supergirl to do better than it did in its first weekend. Unfortunately, it was a disappointment for the DC universe and not a great look for the future of James Gunn's a DC reboot. Instead of Supergirl at number 1, we do have Toy Story 5 returning to the spot with $70 million this week. It's at 298 domestic already in just 2 short weeks. I mean, I'll talk about Toy Story 5 later, about how I feel about that movie. Like I said, number 2, Supergirl only made $37 million this week in its debut. A real disappointment for what I believe I read a $185 million budget. Yikes. Number 3, Obsession made another $9.7 million. That's at 233. Number 4, Jackass Best and Last, still putting butts in dangerous seats at 8.4 million in its debut. And rounding out your top 5, Disclosure Day for made 8.2, I should say, million this week. That's at 94. So just sub 100 domestic right now, and probably not what they were looking for with that one. So I'll give myself a loss, and I'll give Mike a point. So standings, in case you're wondering, because we haven't had standings in a while. Mike is currently at 10 and 14, and I'm at 10 and 13. So we have pretty similar records. We're not doing too hot, but we can catch up. We can get back to 500. Upcoming new releases this week. We have a midweek and a proper weekend release. Your midweek release, so that will get the full advantage of the holiday weekend, is, of course, Illumination's Minions and Monsters. Yeah. It's a Minions movie. It'll probably do super well at the box office. This is likely your big release. Big number 1. Yeah. You know what this is. And then the other thing, I almost don't want to mention it. Yeah, there's a movie called Young Washington. It's about George Washington, but apparently it's like riddled with AI stuff. Yeah, this is an Angel Studios joint. We've talked about them before. You know what to expect here. Minions and Monsters will be your number one movie. I don't need to tell you that. All right, let's move into another depressing video. I almost said video game story. You'll see why I almost said that in a second. Movies story. That is another great reminder about digital content being, well, having its downsides. Sony is currently contacting PlayStation Store users who bought movies from the platform that were distributed by Studio Canal. This includes movies that you wouldn't necessarily associate with Studio Canal brand, like Terminator 2, Total Recall, and Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, to say that, quote, you will no longer be able to access your previously purchased content, and it will be removed from your video library. Sony does not mention any refunds or make goods for the affected users. They simply say the films are going away due to content licensing agreements. And Mike editorializes a bit here, once again reaffirming the fact that you are never truly buying anything that's digital, just temporarily renting it. I realize that video games and movies are different in a lot of key ways. I realize that video games are often based on servers, especially if they have some sort of internet connection. I also know that contracts about video games are done differently when they're sold to a platform holder. But as a possibility of a future, like as a thing that could happen in the future where PlayStation maybe decides, oh, this developer's games, our contract with them is gone. We're just going to take all those games off of your hard drive forcefully. Like, we're just going to take them away. These things that you spent real money on. It's not a good look, and it really is yet another reason why this all digital version of the future that Sony really wants you to believe in sucks eggs. Like, it looks really dire. And this is why when you have stories like this that drop in the same week as announcements like the lack of physical games going forward, you can't kind of help but feel like Sony is backing us into a corner as consumers. Like, so you're telling us we can't go to the store to buy a disc anymore, and we have to use the PlayStation Store. But if we do use the PlayStation Store, there's a possibility that someday in the future, even that game can be taken away from us. So you're just giving us no options? Cool. Cool. Why play video games then? That's where we're getting, right? It's like, again, they just don't care. They don't care about the use case. They don't care about the end user's experience anymore. They care about the end user spending more money on getting a thing again that they already paid for earlier, because then they get to get twice the money that they would have gotten in the first place. It's like that classic thing about, like, well, people, like, who are we going to sell the product to? Well, new people are born every day that want to buy, like, it will eventually buy your product. Like, it's just wild to me that, like, we forgot almost like a piece of, like, this connection almost between the human being, like a human being, and the thing that we're buying. Instead, it's like the human being part has been completely cut out, and you're just talking about now the conversation is the business and the credit card, or maybe more accurately, the credit card debt. That's where we're at, because that's what they're making the money on. That's how all this feels. It all feels like that. All right. Let's move on to finally the last bit of this podcast, which is hopefully going to end it on a good note, because I saw Toy Story 5. And yes, I was skeptical. I mean, naturally so, right? You put a 5 at the end of most movie franchises and you feel like, ooh, we're getting a little long in the tooth here. Have we been at this for too long? Have we made too many of these? Are we running out of ideas? And to be fair, the trailers didn't necessarily do a good job of selling this as a proper follow-up to one of the best animated franchises of all time. The setup being, oh, the kid is getting a tablet and the toys have to deal with the kid choosing screen time over toys, and this kind of idea of modern technology versus old-fashioned play. On paper, it sounds super derivative. It sounds kind of boring. It sounds like, really, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel here. But miracle of all miracles, I don't know how they did it, but they pulled it off where not only do they sell that premise to make it and spin it to be like convincingly emotional and actually tied into things that you would care about, but they then make you almost like, but they then almost establish kind of almost like a happy medium kind of tone at the end. They do the work. They actually do an adequate amount of work to make it not feel trite and overdone and not feel predictable. I'm happy to tell you that I think Toy Story 5 is not only a great Toy Story movie, but I think it might be better than 4 and maybe even 3. Now, okay, if you're thinking at home, that is a ridiculous thing to say. You may recall, if you're a longtime listener, we did a ranking of Pixar movies, and I actually was making an argument, not necessarily fully against Toy Story 3, but making the argument that actually maybe it isn't as great as people want you to believe it is. I think it's a good movie, but do I like it more than 2? Personally, not really. I think it's a movie that has an amazing ending and amazing emotional stakes for these characters. But that's after a bunch of stuff about that. That's basically after a movie that is essentially just a Great Escape parody. I'm not saying that stuff's not good in some ways. It's just like that's what that movie is until you get to the emotional ending, which is perfect. I do have to admit that. 5 is interesting because I feel like 5 has the also the other impossible job of following 4, which had a pretty definitive ending for Woody as a character. I'm not going to really go into super details about spoilers about like what the circumstances of Woody's return is. They kind of established that they gives him enough of a reason in one of the trailers, so like that part I guess is established if you've been paying attention. But it doesn't really matter because I think that ending still works because this movie's not really about Woody this time. No, they make a great choice here by making it really about Jessie, who hasn't really had a story about her since 2. And even 2 was kind of a shared story of multiple characters. Here's mostly about Jessie. Jessie is like largely the protagonist here, has the most screen time of all the characters. Most of the toys actually take a back seat here, and the focus is on her adventure with new toys that she encounters. And of course, this plot with this tablet, this lily pad tablet that's also presented as an antagonist. And it's really cool to have a focus on Jessie. Jessie's an interesting character, has been pretty underutilized. A lot of it is a callback to her backstory from Toy Story 2. It almost fleshes out and like makes that whole story matter even more than it already did. That very dramatic relationship that Jessie has with her original owner is elaborated here in a really cool way. And yeah, I almost came out of this thing being like, wow, I feel like my 9-year-old, like a piece of 9-year-old me was healed a little bit by where the story ends up going. And yeah, like I said, I think that it lands on a really good place with talking about the balance between tech and toys. It doesn't necessarily choose a side. I think where it lands is it's about moderation. It's about balance. And I think that's a really good lesson, even for the kids who will be watching this. It might even get some kids to think about screen time a little bit more, which again is leagues better than I thought we'd end up with a movie about this kind of thing. So kudos, man, to Pixar. They're on a current roll right now between Hoppers and this, like 2026. Man, they're on a comeback. That's 2 in a row that I think are really great. I actually think this might be better than Hoppers. I had a great time with this movie for all the reasons why I said. I also think, again, I mean, it's a Pixar movie in modern times. So, of course, it looks amazing. There's some amazing effects. I am so glad I saw this in a theater. I haven't seen a Pixar movie in a theater in a hot second. So it was cool to see that. I just think, yeah, it's a stellar movie that is just as good as a lot of the Toy Stories that have preceded it. Easily earns that Toy Story name. And yeah, I think if you have kids, see it. If you don't have kids, see it. I wholeheartedly recommend it. It's a good one. All right. Then that'll do it with this week's Media Boat podcast. Thank you for joining us this week. I believe it'll be the both of us back next week, although maybe not. There's some things to figure out with scheduling, but we'll figure that out behind the scenes. In the meantime, thanks for hanging out with me and talking about depressing things and then one cool thing that is not depressing at all. We'll see you next week. In the meantime, if you want to catch us in video form, we're on YouTube. Just search Media Boat Podcast on there to find our video podcasts. You can find audio versions of our podcast as well on podcast services if you search Media Boat Podcast there. You can find us on the internet, Blue Sky, social media, for example. You can find us there by searching Media Boat Podcast. Twitch.tv/MediaBoat. Mike will play the occasional video game there. And last but definitely not least, if you have questions, comments, feedback about the show, please send us an email at mediaboatpodcast@gmail.com. In most cases, we will check that email address and we will read those questions if we ever get one. All right. I'll sign off here and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.